And let's talk about this now with Steve Mabona, who is the spokesperson from the Department of Education. Steve, good morning, and thank you very much for your time. It was hard to listen to that news conference, because as a parent you think there are so many opportunities for where this could have been prevented. So Mishak Nchupetsang, the law firm representative there, was talking about, you know, the deep end wasn't clearly demarcated, no lifeguards, no supervision. Supervision was compromised, also no immediate action was taken, and yet we do understand that there is an excursion legislative framework that does exist. So quickly just walk us through what that framework does.
It must be adhered to. So I think the challenge that we have was that the memorandum, which was then issued to say schools can, approve an excursion, it gave an opportunity for wrong things to happen, because the approval process must go to the district, where you will then have all the checks and balances, tick all the boxes. I mean, you can't take a child to an institution that does not have a life vest and does not have lifeguards, and there's a water program that you're going to undertake. So that's as a transgression at its best. So that's why we felt that we need to implement the recommendations, and we'll be working tirelessly as the department to make sure that we implement, so that we then avoid any eventuality that might come our way.
Just in the timeline, so when was the executive framework on excursions set and decided, and then kind of overridden by this MOU? And just tell us a little bit more about the detail of that MOU.
No, the detail on the memorandum.
The memorandum, I'm sorry.
It gave the school management team and the SGB to approve on the excursions that they're going to be undertaking. Whether there's water or any other program, they will then decide and consult the parents. If they agree that this is where we're going to be going and this is what we're going to be doing, whether it's a leadership program, whether it's a curriculum-based program, they will then have that list and say, this is where we are going. But then it then gave them that they can decide at the school level. That's a memorandum. So hence the investigative body says, you need to rethink about the memorandum. Let's not give schools, an opportunity to make that call, because then there are chances that you're going to miss a lot of steps. Like, for instance, making sure that you verify. You must have a plan. When you go anywhere, you must have a plan. Did you check the venue? Is it child-friendly? We're not going to have any incidents. And that was lacking, because there was no plan. They went there, and I mean, if the water is not even clean, how do you then take children in such water? So all those boxes need to be ticked, but the memorandum was giving them an opportunity to approve at that level. So hence, when it comes to the district, then we'll be in a position to tick all the boxes and approve an excursion that we are 100% sure that we're not going to have eventualities.
I'll come back to some of the detail just now, because it is quite chilling. But you've got hundreds of schools that would then have to revert to the district. Just talk to us about why the memorandum trumped the excursion legislative framework. What happened there? Why did it lead to a situation where schools were given this discretionary opportunity?
No, I will not have that information, offered now. But, schools, we have over 2,300 schools in Gauteng. So probably all of them, they need to, make sure that they apply and you approve. But looking at this one, they applied early as per, what they informed us. They started early to prepare. They started in November for a trip that will be undertaken in January. So that's why there's a gray line on the preparation thereof. So hence the recommendation, we need to, as a department, follow through and make sure that even if we have many schools, but we must make sure that we tick the correct boxes.
So what happens now, Steve? Because another family doesn't need to mourn the loss of a child at school. You heard the MEC, Matume Chilwane, yesterday saying, when you bring your child to us, we effectively are supposed to ensure at the end of a school day they come home to you in the same condition that you brought them to us in the morning. So what happens from this point on, this moment on, in terms of schools and excursions?
Work is already, commenced. We will be issuing a memorandum to all schools on how we're going to be managing excursions moving forward. It's a matter of us looking at the recommendations and saying, this is what we're going to be doing. So in the next week, we will come in public and say, this is what we have issued to the schools so that everyone knows how we're going to be managing this. But for now, as a matter of agency, there will be a memorandum that will be issued to schools, more especially on water-related excursions. But you know that you need to be utilizing those recommendations and make sure that we make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Because we can't disadvantage those that will be saying, for instance, water exercises for us, sometimes we are involved in water sports. You can't say schools must not do anything which has to do with water. So all those elements, they will be in the memorandum, looking at the experience of us having such incidences.
Steve, it just sounds like a lot of paperwork, and there's paperwork and process in terms of setting that framework in the first place. Then there's a memo. Then there is the work that school SGBs have to do. Is there not a synthesized excursion policy that says, and again, this was announced yesterday, that now you are going to have an approved list of places and venues where children can go to for their excursions, and that why is it only being done now in the aftermath of a tragedy? Some would say that because, you're dealing with other people's children, and the responsibility on the department is so great that you already, straight out the gate, have 10 sites across Gauteng, or whatever the number might be, that meet the criteria that they need to have. A lifeguard if there's water there, but also a learner profile. Can a learner swim? As in the case of Latoya Temilton, apparently the child could not swim, and she was exposed to an environment where there was a large volume of water. Apparently it was, even the shallow end was much higher than her height, and there was no lifeguards around. So why does that not exist, Steve? Why are we acting now after the horse is bolted?
No, there are guidelines. Remember the Enoch Mpianze case gave us some information that this is how we need to, manage any water exercise or any water-related incident that we're going to be undertaking. There are guidelines which schools need to follow. That's why we are saying there's a thin line between your excursions, whether you say all excursions or you say excursions which has a water-related, exercise. Because any incident or any activity which has a water-related activity, there are guidelines which were issued to the schools. These are the boxes that you need to tick. That's why when the investigative body says there's negligence when coming to allowing children to be in a space where there are no vests or lifeguards. I mean, this is what happened in the Mpianze case, where there were no vests at some point. So how do you then expose children to a place that does not have the lifeguards? So there are those guidelines which the district and the school have in their position that they need to follow. So that's why then you will then have to prefer charges of negligence, looking at all those elements. I'm going to come
back to that, because that was actually a recommendation from the legal report. Do you feel that as a department you could have done better?
When coming to excursions, yes, we could have done better. When coming to any water-related exercise, we have guidelines already. So the negligence which will be coming from our employees, whether it's an error of judgment or they would have their own reasons, it's something that we cannot say much about. Because remember, children must always be supervised. And the investigative body says there, children were not even supervised. So whether there's an incident that will be coming, but where is the supervision? Because in the first instance, we are parents of these children when they are in our care. So if we don't supervise them, whether we have guidelines, probably something might happen, but there's an element of negligence that you need to deal with.
Well, let's come to that. So the firm recommended that the principal and the teachers affected be charged in terms of the Children's Act. So this is the principal and the teachers, because it was their responsibility to make sure that they'd taken care of Latoya while she was in their care, as well as recommending that the school be charged for contravening certain sections of the Act, and also recommended that there be training on how schools and teachers conduct their excursions. Have you now gone and preferred charges against the various individuals? What are you doing criminally on the basis of that report?
Now, remember, the report was only presented yesterday. So our labor unit is facilitating a process of conferring those charges. Because remember, you need to have the charges, and you need to interact with the employee to say, here are the charges that will be conferred. The employee must then have the representation. They must study those, and then they must respond. And then you also need to facilitate a process of disciplinary hearing where they will then plead their case. So it's a process. But we have started with the paperwork, because we need to make sure that you follow the due process, because there's labor law in the country that you need to follow.
Doesn't criminal law trump labor law in the instance of negligence of this nature?
No, then we can't enter into criminality. Criminality is the purview of the police. Remember, if there's a death, the police will then open a case. So there's a case that the police are investigating. Whether they will do an inquest, or they open a murder, or is a culpable homicide, is the police that will decide, basing themselves on what they have in the docket. So that case continues, and it's police that are better placed to respond on anything criminality.
And has the family indicated that they will sue?
Well, I guess it were, the family did indicate that they need to study the report, and they will make informed decisions. We gave them the contact details of the legal services. They will be working very closely with our legal services. Families are not the same. Some will come on the table with legal services and decide on the way forward that is amicable. If there's compensation that must be done, they will facilitate that. And some, they will want to go, the court route, and they will always be there to work with them.
Just a final thing to close, Steve. Has there been an urgent circular sent out to school, kind of red flagging excursions, and just conscientizing them to the risk?
No, not yet. Remember, this thing was done yesterday.
Yeah, but the death happened in January. Even though you would wait for the results of an investigation, you know that it's related to an outing involving learners. Surely you'd want to, kind of raise the alarm with schools.
No, that will be fast-tracked. Now that we have these recommendations, any correspondence that will be going out will be informed. Because
it seems too relaxed, Steve, when lives are at risk. I mean, children who are vulnerable in the hands of their schools and teachers, it seems relaxed.
No, it's not relaxed. We are considering all the stakeholders. Remember, we've got stakeholders in our sector. Anything we do, we are under watch. So you don't want to be sued again by the SGB of a certain school that they feel that your memorandum is not well informed, whatever the case might be. So you tread very carefully. You can't just issue a memorandum to say you stop this. The next thing you are taken to court, you lose that case again. You must come here and explain that.
Steve Mabona, thank you for making time and coming to join me in the studio. Appreciate you this morning. Steve Mabona speaks for the health department, the education department, rather, here in Gauteng.